Coming up today in episode 202 of Husavik Heroes, we have our youth intake here for 2038 at Völsungur, the draw for the Champions League for this next European season as we try and make it 4 European titles. We'll also check in on how things did end up for the other Icelandic teams in European qualifying, but before all of that, we are taking on Arsenal in the UEFA Super Cup. Can we pick it up for a second time? Find out right after the intro. Everyone, and welcome back to Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and if you are looking forward to this episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we've only gone forward a few clicks off the back of where we did end things in yesterday's episode. If you missed that one, it was a cup quarterfinal against Breidablik, as well as another bit of a little transfer update. Then I will leave a link to that one over in the top right corner, but we haven't done too much since then. We are about to take on Arsenal in this UEFA Super Cup, and of course Arsenal are a team we are quite familiar with from recent history. We only played them in the group stages of the Champions League last season, and when we did win the Super Cup back a couple of years ago, it was now in 2035/36, we did beat Arsenal to win the Super Cup. So our recent history over Arsenal is quite good, and if we go over to the data hub, that will only be proven. As you can see, the last 5 times that we have played them in the Super Cup and in Club World Cups, as well as the Champions League group stage last season, we have performed pretty well against them since all the way back in 2031 when they did knock us out fairly early on in the knockouts of the Europa League. But recent form is with us here against Arsenal, and they haven't played any domestic league games so far this season, so it is a little bit hard to get a line on them, but we are, as I said, quite familiar with them, having only played them last season in the group stages of the Champions League, and from what I can tell, their team doesn't look too different to what it was back then, so we know a fair bit about these guys. Hopefully we can pick up the Super Cup for a second time come the end of this game, which is going to start off today's episode. We're going to get right into the action. We'll come back shortly from the Allianz Riviera for the 2038 UEFA Super Cup, Völsungur taking on Arsenal. And here are the team sheets for this year's Super Cup. There we are. It's a complete rotation from what we did put out against Breidablik in yesterday's episode, back to our first choice 11 with that addition of Lapasay at left wing, and there are Arsenal playing a 4-2-3-1, so a fairly similar formation to what we are putting out. Hopefully we can lift the Super Cup for the second time in this save. And 4 minutes gone, we have our first highlight here. Íþróttafélagið does get brought down inside the box, albeit before then the ball was won by that slide tackle, so fair play there from Arsenal, but we do keep possession off the back of that, albeit are retreating back to the halfway line. But it does look like we are going to start off this game on the front foot, and we start to get something going here down our right-hand side. Radenko Krolo will play that for Dumby. A nice ball there for Íþróttafélagið. Decent save from Paton, and then it is Lapasay with a decent chance from a tight angle, but good block there from the Arsenal defender to keep it at 0-0 early. And just shy of the 20-minute mark, we have our next highlighted corner here in our favour, and Filippo Dinelli gets his head on the end of that corner. It comes off the post well and truly on top of Arsenal, but it is still 0-0. And just past the half-hour mark, we do have our next highlight, yet again trying to get something going here down the right-hand side, but that is a poor pass, and Warren does get possession back there for Arsenal, and they start to get on the front foot here for really the first time in this game. Good chance there for Kosic, but a good point-blank save there from Carl Vollen, and that will keep it at 0-0. Arsenal's first shot of the game with 10 minutes left in the first half. And very shortly off the back of that opening chance for Arsenal, we start things off yet again with a goal kick. It is in our favour, and we look to play out from the back, albeit that's a little bit iffy there from Radenko Krolo, but thankfully we get the ball back not too long after he does lose it, and yet again it does look like we are trying to exploit Arsenal here down our right-hand side. Filippo Dinelli will play this one to Radenko Krolo, who did just have that slightly iffy moment. Now Basaroge will play that one out for Jonathan Berger, and we do take our time here to play out from the back. Might be a long highlight, which hopefully means this is going to end up in something rather important, but Filippo Ginelli is back on the ball yet again, starts to inch his way towards the halfway line, still trying to take our time here down the right-hand side, but Lassana Doumbia now finds some space. Lovely ball in the box for Bienvenu Bea. He rockets that into the top right corner. It was a long highlight, and just shy of the 40-minute mark, we do grab a 1-0 lead here in the Super Cup, as the game does just freeze a little bit there, but some patient build-up play eventually. Lassana Doumbia is the man who makes the run, and Bea in a lot of space. That's a really nice sort of scorpion scissor kick there from Bienvenu Bea, puts it in the top right corner, and it's 1-0 Völsungur just shy of half-time. And that is half-time in the Super Cup. Very good karate kick, I think that was in the end, not a scorpion or scissor kick. Not too sure where that came from, but it was from Bienvenu Bea, and that, I think, is a pretty deserved scoreline going into the sheds here at half-time, well and truly on top of Arsenal, so no changes needed just yet, but pretty happy with how things are going, and we'll kick off the second half with that 1-0 lead. And just over 10 minutes into the second half, we're going to make our first substitution here. Lassana Doumbia has gone down to a red heart. We are playing well with Bruno Costa, very able backup on the bench, so he can come on. That's our first sub. It's still 1-0 with just over a half hour left. And not too long off the back of that first substitution, we are going to make another one. Elaine Basicki down to a red heart has just picked up a yellow card, so Richard Waswa can come on for him. And what we're going to do is move Basaro Gay forward into that DM role, 25 minutes left, and a little bit of extra change, and it's still 1-0 Völsungur. And in fact, very shortly off the back of that second substitution, have just noticed that Augustine Agatigere now is down to a red heart. I think we'll play things safe. This will be our last sub. Malizio Menga to come on for him. Still 1-0 Völsungur. And with 20 minutes left in this one, we finally have a highlight here in the second half. Arsenal were on the front foot, but Richard Waswa does head that one away, and we start to try and get on the front foot here on somewhat of a counter-attack. Some good short passing here. Slide tackle, which does get the ball back for Arsenal, albeit Bruno Costa will set up Malizio Menga off of the bench. It's two of our substitutions who are linking up, and Menga comes off the bench, and that could be an all-important cushion goal here in the Super Cup for 2038. Things got a little bit messy here, but thankfully Bruno Costa was there to tidy things up off of the slide tackle. Good finish there from Menga, and that makes it 2-0 Völsungur. And we've just made our way inside the last 10 minutes of the Super Cup. It is the former Arsenal man, Jean-Yves Lapasse, here with a free kick. It does come off there to the top left corner of the crossbar, so he does nearly score there against one of his former teams, but we do still keep possession here off the back of that Arsenal clearance, and there might be something else happening here in this highlight. Radenko Krolo plays that one back for Basaro Gay. Some good short passing, and Malizio Menga will yet again put it into that bottom left corner. He is coming off the bench with some impact today. That's his second goal, and surely that is going to seal us the Super Cup here for 2038. I thought the highlight would have been that free kick, but it just continued, and Adam Saki in the end squares that ball for Malizio Menga. Quite a similar finish, albeit from a little bit further out than his first goal, and that will make it 3-0 Völsungur late. And we have another highlight here where we might be on the front foot as Paton does clear that one for Arsenal. Tries to find Guzzo, but Waswa is there to tidy things up for us at the back. And yet again, we start to get on the front foot. Lapasse will slot through. Maurizio Menga puts it in the bottom right corner. We will have to wait for a VAR check, but he might have come off the bench here and scored a hat-trick in the Super Cup. He is turning into quite the buy in place of Hans Voss, and indeed, that goal has been awarded. Malizio Menga comes off the bench and scores a hat-trick in around about 20 minutes, and he caps it off there with a nice low-driven shot into the bottom right corner. Hat-trick hero Malizio Menga. We'll just wait and see here how close it was to being offside. It is a perfectly timed run, and Lapasse sets that one up against his former team, and that will definitely seal this result, albeit the highlights do continue. Can Arsenal get a consolation goal here with not much time remaining, albeit that's a poor pass, and Bienvenu Bea does get possession back for us. Lapasse holds things up, plays it back to Waswa, but this has been a very good second half, and this result is threatening to turn into something similar to what it was the last time we played Arsenal in a Super Cup. You would have seen it earlier. I do think we actually beat them 5-0 back then as well. They do deal with that danger though, do Arsenal. They try and clear their lines, albeit Waswa is there to yet again tidy things up. This has been a really good performance especially in the second half after the first half, where we were slightly underperforming our XG. Menga is on the ball. We just hold things up here just outside the box, and Bayer will slot through Adam Saki. He gets a little bit of help there from the inside of the post, albeit I think this time this one might get called offside, but we are going to wait for the VAR check. And yet again, the goal has been awarded to Adam Saki. Makes his way onto the score sheet. Benvenu Bayer gets an assist to go alongside his goal, which did open things up. He gets a little bit of help there from the inside of the crossbar, and we are absolutely destroying Arsenal here inside the last 10 minutes of this game. Saki with yet another very well-timed run. He puts that away, and all of a sudden, it is 5-0 Völsungur as we do enter 2 minutes of added time in the end. Very, very efficient in front of goal there in that second half, and Arsenal, just like in the Champions League group stage last season, no real match for us, albeit that time by a very, very comfortable scoreline, and that is a heck of a performance going into the group stages of the Champions League next week. We go into that with a lot of confidence off the back of a very, very impressive 5-0 win in the Super Cup. We picked it up for the second time in the save. And going forward a few days off the back of that very good win there in the Super Cup, we have actually got forward to our youth intake for this season. But first things first, we have just checked the results from the third qualifying round for European competitions. First off, Nats KR, they were taking on a team out of Slovakia. Unfortunately, they have lost there on penalties. It did end up 4-4 on aggregate off the back of a 2-1 loss that they did suffer in that second leg. And in the end, unfortunately, Nats KR, they have been knocked out on penalties. So what that does mean is we just have one team in a playoff for the Conference League, and that team, of course, is Fylkir, who are currently in pretty good form domestically. They are going to be taking on Spartacus out of Hungary. Still not quite sure how you would pronounce that first name of that team name, so apologies if you are a fan of that team or do know how to say it. Maybe let me know down in the comments, but I think that's quite a winnable tie there for Fylkir. So hopefully they will make their way through to the group stages of the Conference League. And going up to the Champions League, we had HK, who were taking on, of course, RB Salzburg, and they do hang on there, picking up a 2-2 draw in the home league off the back of beating them 2-1 away from home. So HK are going through to a playoff, and they are taking on the winner of the tie up above. They are going to be playing final because they got the better of Fenerbahce. So HK are in a Champions League playoff, taking on Feyenoord, and Fylkir hopefully can get the job done in their Conference League playoff against that team Spartacus out of Hungary. But it is time for us to go and have a look at our youth intake for this season. It's not the worst that we have had in this save, albeit probably just one player that you might need to keep an eye out on, albeit we are at the stage of the save where I'm not too sure how much of these players you are going to see now, but it is quite a good position to have a promising player because it is a defensive midfielder, Porstein Mani Ratkovic. He is the star prospect from this season's youth intake. 1-star current ability, 3.5-star potential. Definitely a player who we are going to sign no matter what does happen off the back of the trial game that I am going to watch off the back of filming this little bit. But he is a fairly promising defensive midfielder, and we are going to train him up as a halfback, and hopefully he's going to prove to be a decent squad player in the future of this save, as I mentioned, even if we don't see too much of him by the time we do wrap things up, as I said a few times this week, with around about a month's time, I'm guessing, until the FM23 beta does come out. But he is really the only player I think we need to look at from the youth intake this season. Below that, there's a few players with 2.5-star potential, quite a few with 2-star or lower potential as well. So he is definitely the star prospect from this year's youth intake, but we'll come back shortly, do a wrap-up of what happened in the last qualifying round of those European competitions before we take part in this season's group stage draw for the Champions League. And we have gone forward up until the Champions League group stage draw for 2038. Before then, of course, we do need to reveal exactly where the other Icelandic teams are going to be in the UEFA competitions. But before we do have a look at that, just a quick update on the game that we have played in between now and then. We did get a game against HK delayed. I think that was because, of course, they did make their way into a Champions League playoff, so it was just the one game that we have played in the league, and it was against the team who we are going to be playing in the Icelandic Cup semi-final, rather surprisingly, in Nats KR. They did beat HK in that semi-final, which is a little bit surprising, but good form going into that one because we did beat them 4-0 there, largely thanks to a double from Shaun. So we are still on for a perfect domestic season in the league. 15 wins from 15 already, guaranteed Conference League qualification next season, but we will hopefully go a bit further than that and win the title yet again. We are now 9 points clear of Phil Kerr, and we no longer have either of those teams with a game in hand on the other, so in quite a strong position to be picking up this trophy for the 16th season in a row. But it is time to go and have a look at what did happen in the last round of UEFA Qualifying. We are going to start off with the Champions League and start to work our way down from there so we can see exactly where teams are going to end up for this upcoming European season. Of course, we are about to take part in the group stage draw. We'll just avoid that in the meantime. But going over to the League Path playoff, unfortunately, HK didn't really fire a shot in either leg of that one. They get knocked out by Feyenoord 4-0, but that's not too bad. It does mean that HK are going to be in the group stage of the Europa League, and that will be alongside Keflavik, who have already qualified through their efforts in the domestic league last season, finishing third on the table. So that is already 3 teams in Europe for this season, us in the Champions League, HK and Keflavik in the Europa League. But we go down just a little bit more now and see if Phil Kerr got the job done in the Conference League playoff. And we're actually still at the halfway stage of this Conference League playoff, so we're going to need to do another bit of an update later on off the back of this group stage draw. But at the halfway stage, Phil Kerr might be in a little bit of trouble. They trail 2-1, albeit I do think the second leg of that one is going to be played in Iceland. So hopefully Phil Kerr can turn that around. But at the very least, we've got 3 teams in Europe for this upcoming season. Hopefully Phil Kerr might be able to pull off a semi-upset, albeit not too sure if you could call it that, and we can make it 4 Icelandic teams in the group stages of Europe, which would be the best that we have done so far in this save. But it is time for us to take part in the group stage draw for the Champions League this season. Of course, first seeds we are in there being the defending champions and the top-ranked team in terms of coefficient in Europe, but in there alongside us, Man United, Real Madrid, Arsenal. My microphone's in the way, so if you're wondering why I'm ducking my head a little bit, that is the reason. But Juventus, PSG, Hertha Berlin, and Sporting out of Portugal are also in that top pot. Pot 2 does look quite strong. We have Chelsea, Man City, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Sevilla, Milan, and Borussia Dortmund. So no real easy task there in that second pot, albeit still teams that we probably at this stage of the save should be beating. Down to pot 3, we have Real Sociedad, Napoli, Lille, Partizan, Nice, Feyenoord, Cologne, and Sparta Prague. So I think there's a couple of teams there that we would hopefully be able to avoid out of those top 5 nations, but still teams that we should be beating. And down to the 4th seeds, which really should be the easy beats, and they, in theory, are Ajax, Horn, Galatasaray, Rangers, Banik, Ostrava, Famalicão, Lokomotiv Moscow, and AAB out of Denmark. So those are the pots for this season's Champions League draw. Obviously, pot 1 not too relevant, especially as we are a part of it, but we have ended up in Group B. So we're going to find out who we get fairly soon here in this draw. There's still going to be quite a few options who we can get from each of the pots. First out in Group A is Dortmund alongside Manchester United, and the team that we are going to get is Inter Milan, which is quite interesting because at the moment they have put in a bid for Ognjan Miskic. He's just recovered from his injury, so we can finally try and move him on. Hopefully he does go to Inter Milan. That will be a tasty matchup because they have bid £70 million for him, exactly the price that we did pay for his replacement in Shaun. So hopefully we might be taking on Ognjan Miskic when we take on Inter Milan come the early stages of next week. So that is a bit of a tasty matchup. Of course, they have also signed the likes of Kalen Rakasan and Kenny Boyle off us in the past. That is a very interesting matchup there against an Inter Milan team who might have quite a few former Völsungur players on their books. Arsenal, of course, get Bayern Munich in Group C. Group D, Sporting and Barcelona at the moment. That looks like a little bit of a weak group. Real Madrid and AC Milan in Group E. Hertha Berlin joined by Sevilla. In Group F, Chelsea join Juventus in Group G, and that does mean that Man City and PSG are in Group H. That also looks like a little bit of a strong one. Napoli go into Group A alongside Dortmund and Man United, probably one of the teams that we did want to avoid. Out of the third pot, albeit, we are going to be taking on Lille, a team who I do believe we've taken on in the early stages of the Champions League knockouts in the past. So yet again, a team who are by no means going to be a walkover at the moment. This group is looking like it could potentially just be a little bit tricky, even though we would certainly still be favourites to get out of it. On top, Real Sociedad go into Group C, Sparta Prague into Group D at the moment. That group does look primed for Barcelona to finish on top. Nice go into Group E. It is Partizan in Group F. We have Cologne in Group G, and that will leave Feyenoord to go into that pretty tough-looking group alongside PSG and Man City are now down to the fourth seeds. It is Horn out of Austria who go into Group A. We get Ajax. So on paper, that does look like quite a strong group, albeit Ajax in the Save universe, not the best team. They did lose to HK a few seasons ago in the Europa League knockout, so I think that's a team that we should get the better of, but there are certainly no real easy matches in our Champions League group this season. Does look potentially like a little bit of a group of death, but hopefully we can still make our way out of that group and hopefully in top spot as well to help us out come the first knockout round draw for the start of 2039. Rangers go into Group C and Group D Lokomotiv Moscow. So as I said, I think Barcelona will be pretty happy with how that group has gone, as well as Sporting. I think those two teams will probably get out of that. Of course, Sporting did make their way into the latter stages of the Champions League last season. AAB from Denmark in Group E. We have Galatasaray in Group F. It is Famalicão in Group G, and that means that Banak Ostrava are going to end up in Group H and probably be on the end of a few batterings there in what does look like quite a strong group. But those will be the groups of the Champions League this season. We get drawn alongside Inter Milan, Lille, and Ajax. As I said, that could be a bit of a tough group. We'll come back shortly, see if Phil Kerr can get the job done in the second leg of their playoff, and then check in on what groups the other Icelandic teams get in those lower European competitions. And we've gone for a few clicks. We have got the groups now for the Conference League and for the Europa League. And as you can see on screen, around about halfway down, Phil Kerr indeed did overcome that deficit in the second leg. They picked up a 3-1 win. They go through 4-3 on aggregate. So they just do enough there to make the group stages of the Conference League. But that means we have 4 Icelandic teams in the group stages of Europe this season. As I mentioned earlier, Keflavik and HK are in the Europa League and Phil Kerr in the Conference League. So this, in theory, could be quite a good coefficient season for us on that table. Maybe we can start to bridge that gap on Portugal, who are currently in 6th place. But now it is time for us to go and have a look at who exactly Phil Kerr did get in their group. We'll make our way down. Hopefully, they won't be in one of the bottom couple, and indeed, they are in Group F. They are in a group alongside Asker out of Norway, Bayer Leverkusen out of Germany. I do think that they might have bet Bayer Leverkusen in a past campaign. It was either them or Nuts Chaos. They certainly are not unbeatable Bayer Leverkusen, even though on paper they look the strongest team in that group. And also there is Atromitos out of Greece. So Phil Kerr might be in with a sneaky chance of getting out of that group, albeit Bayer Leverkusen probably the favourites to finish on top of that group. So that's what things do look like down in the Conference League for Phil Kerr. And up to the Europa League, of course, we have 2 teams in this one, and right up the top you see HK are in Group A. They are alongside RB Leipzig. That will be quite tough for those guys. RB Leipzig, of course, a few seasons ago did beat us in that Super Cup, so a tough task there for HK. But below that, Granada out of Spain and Malmo out of Sweden. If HK are in good form, they might be able to finish second in that group, or at the very least, hopefully, can finish above one of those other 2 teams and make their way down into the knockouts of the Conference League. And we're going to have to go over to the separate group here for Keflavik, because they are right at the bottom where my head would usually be blocking them. And unfortunately, they also look to have a little bit of a tough group there. Liverpool in their group, so no doubt they're going to get absolutely slaughtered when they do travel to Anfield. But also they have Südtirol out of Italy, an interesting team there, not one you'd expect to see in Europe. So maybe Keflavik can upset those guys. And also another Greek team for one of the Icelandic ones to be taking on this time in Panathinaikos. I do think Keflavik might just struggle a little bit in that group, albeit, as I said before, with HK, they could find a way to sneak their way into third. that would get them Conference League knockout football, and that might be a way for them to pick up a few extra coefficient points. So overall, I think HK might be the best placed of those teams to be making their way into the knockouts of a European competition. Also maybe Phil Keir, but Keflavik might be in a little bit of trouble there with teams out of England and Italy in their groups, albeit with them being in the Europa League, they could always drop down to the Conference League should they finish above one of those other teams in their groups. But that will do it for today's episode. In fact, just before we do wrap things up, a quick look at what things do look like on the coefficient table after qualifying. At the moment, Iceland on a 1.8. The big thing for this upcoming season, we are getting rid of an 8.4. Portugal getting rid of a 13. So this is definitely a season where we can close that gap, and hopefully once we start getting involved, we will start to really bridge that gap on Portugal. Probably need to keep a little bit of an eye out as well on Holland behind us, only around about 2 coefficient points behind us. If we do not have a good season, they might be able to just overtake us, but hopefully at the very least we can hold on to that 7th spot and really close that gap on Portugal come the end of this European season. But that will do it for today's episode. We picked up the Super Cup there against Arsenal in the end very, very comfortably, and also had the group stage draw for all the European competitions. We are drawn alongside Inter Milan, Ajax and Lille, and as you can see on screen there, the first game that we are going to be playing come the start of next week is away, taking on Inter Milan, who by that stage could have the likes of Ognjan Mizkic as well as Kenny Boreal and Kalen Rakasan on their books, and will probably also, hopefully, be playing a Malka Bikarin final come the start of next week as well, as long as we do get past Nuts KR like we did in our most recent game. But if you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We will come back Tuesday morning New Zealand time and Monday night UK time. Of course, before then, I am going to be over on Twitch on Monday night New Zealand time, Monday morning UK time. I think I'm still going to do it even though it is the day of the Queen's funeral. We should be wrapped up about an hour or so before that does start, so I think we're going to be in the clear for that one. So if you are free, come and check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/ShaunDoesFM. But we'll come back next week and hopefully have a fairly normal week and get through the group stages of the Champions League and also wrap up a few more domestic trophies as well. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.